I love the idea of doing monthly art challenges. I love the thought of being given a prompt list and having a set amount of time, and at the end of it you have 30 or so pieces completed, all tied to a theme. I love the thought of improving over the time frame and getting other people to watch as you progress with your craft. But I never fully completed a monthly art challenge, ever. In most cases, I start off the challenge a bit too ambitious, only to not be able to replicate that ambition. Sooner or later, I've given up on the challenge after 3 days. My longest streak was Inktober 2016, and I made it 16 days of completing black and white traditional drawings with ink. I had to stop due to my pieces keeping me awake past 2 a.m. It was starting to affect my real life. However, on February 2nd, 2021, I was...
Don't fly around my room! Why are you doing? What are you doing? Stop!
Inspired! I finally broke out of a dry spell with my own artwork, and I decided that I wanted to try out a February OTP monthly challenge with Takamori as my focus. And I wanted to create comic strips to help make sure I didn't overextend my time limits. I was starting a day behind, but I had a fire in my heart to go for it. Even though my original plan was to pursue all 28 days of February, I stopped on Valentine's Day. I wanted to pivot my energy towards this YouTube channel and couldn't dedicate enough time to both tasks. The support I got during my challenge was incredible. I learned more than I thought I would at the end of it all. And best of all, I did all my challenge work on one canvas in Procreate, meaning I have the full speed paint for 14 days worth of comics. I've added timestamps if you want to skip to a certain day in advance. And without further ado, let's start! So my original setup that ended up persisting throughout the rest of the comics I did is I have this gray background in order for me to understand where the comic will be placed, and then the title will remain in the same location. So this first prompt was the theme First Meeting, and a lot of these, when getting inspiration, I was looking up Takamori clips to see if there was any interactions between them that I could reference from, and there was a clip of Kiara literally saying that the first time she met Callie thousands of years ago, she was like, "Dang, what a hot chick." So I thought it was entirely fitting to try to capture just that simple interaction in a comic. These were also the first times that I drew these characters, and it was an interesting trying to pare down their complicated outfits into something that is easily digestible in comic form. So I really like how this Callie turned out, and you'll see, like, I try a few different faces with Kiara in the third panel, where I was just doing like more goofy reacts, and I settled on making her look like a Kermit the Frog meme, given that she am frog. So I made a mistake in this comic, which I later established a routine, which is I want to write the text first, write the text bubbles, and then outline the characters so that I'm not spending time working on artwork that's just going to be hidden by speech bubbles. I've made that mistake in the past when working on comics. And you'll see I've copied the official character stills and done color picking in order to fill them in, added in emojis for the hearts, and that's about a wrap on this comic. Now I actually jump to a sketch of the day 8 prompt, which is morning routine, where I have Callie looking extremely disheveled. She's, in my mind, not a morning person, in more ways than one. Morning and M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G. And I had this idea of Kiara being like early, prim, proper, very polished, having all sorts of beauty products, and originally was going to be orderly, but I jumped ahead to day 8 because I just had an idea that I wanted to capture. Now I'm back to working on day 2's prompt. We'll see me working back on day 8's when it's close to the deadline. So now I'm actually committing to the idea of writing out the text first, writing out the speech bubbles, and then going in to outline the characters. I also now have a loose outline of what the punchline is going to be. So it's sort of interesting seeing that I'm starting to get a feel for the process and making steps to ensure that I'm officially working on my artwork. So this is a combination of 2 different clips I saw of her where they were playing some game, Minecraft, I think, where Callie was like, "I made food." No, it was Don't Starve. It was Don't Starve. They were playing together, and Kiara was like, "I made food for you, my wife," and that caught Callie off guard. And then there was literally another clip where Kiara is very overt with her flirting, and I really liked that I was able to make her look like a shoujo protagonist in the second one. It's also interesting to see that I got more used to drawing. It's admittedly been a while since I've drawn women, so jumping into Hololive, which is pretty much all women, sorry Hollow Stars, but seeing me get better. Like, this torso is a bit long when I look at it again. I also have this little head of Callie that I forgot to line at this point. But I had the idea of Callie sitting there with recording equipment and her kazoo, while a cheese platter fitting for wine is brought over by Callie. And I also wanted to make sure I drew the EN cast over there. Little sleepy Ina, smug Amelia, and aloof Gura. Really cracks me up. It's like Gura, like, not looking like she knows where she is for some reason. So yeah, now I'm on the lining stage. You see that I've outlined the bubbles this time, and written the text so that I'm not lining any part that appears under the text speech. But yeah, it's also fun seeing the little sketch of Kiara on the left, because at some point I forgot to line it, and you'll see that when I start doing colors that I end up redrawing the character entirely, and which is good because I'm not actually a fan of the sketch that it turned out. It's cute, but I think the one that ended up as a result looks cuter. She looks more like I don't know, like she got a pizza pie. Even though there's no food on the platter because I had no idea how to draw a cheese platter. There's me, I had forgotten to draw little Callie right there, being shocked and blushing about hearing the word wife. And now I've colored the panels in the back and coloring the text bubbles. And there's me redrawing the character that I missed. And see, like, look at her, she looks so cute. Look at her running over with her arms over like that. It's also interesting seeing that I ended up having a bit of a process for when I fill in the solids before I go in with the specific colors, that after a while I like had a committed like pink color that I would use for Callie, and then an orange color that I would use for Kiara. The flashing that you're seeing up here is because I was using the first comic that I did so that I matched the colors that I had picked from it. Now I've got the stills of the rest of the end cast. I tried to do something different with the background so it's not just solid colors, and I like it, but maybe it was a bit too busy. I don't know. I feel like the characters are complex enough, and also seeing it on Twitter, I forgot how much this comic gets shrunk down, so maybe it was for naught. This is, I forget if this is day 3. This is clothing swap is the prompt. So I wanted Kiara to be wearing Callie's outfit, and I just imagined her like she would totally own it. She would just be like, I think I have her saying, "I am the knight." Like, but you can see I just had this idea of sketching them out full body, and later I cropped it so that it ends up only showing the torso. So again, it's more time that I spent working on the legs and stuff that ended up just not being used. I couldn't quite get Callie's body working out. I wanted her to like look shy with the arm across, but I couldn't get the anatomy to look proper. So in the final version, I have both of her arms just behind her back, and I also extend her hair. But yeah, I have it where Kiara definitely owns the outfit, and Callie, her outfit is just too tight on her. In the earlier parts, I guess I had different ideas for comics that would come across later, but I was avoiding whatever the next day was. So I guess it was helpful having everything in one canvas, because I knew what sketches I had already started without having to jump between different work in progresses. This comic's theme is being sleepy. I like that I wrote the thing in the top. This was from a recent clip because both Callie and Kiara spent a week together just hanging out. Called Takamori Week, and in one of the clips they talk about how they were staying like in a hotel room together, and Callie made some comment about how if Kiara did anything wrong she would kill her. One of the things she said she would do it over was snoring, which then Kiara rightfully interjects like there's nothing she could do to help it. So I had to illustrate Kiara looking all cute and then all of a sudden like snoring really loudly and then being hit with the scythe. I really love how the sketches for this comic turned out, because I liked doing the middle panels where there's a perspective shift, one looking up from Kiara's angle and one looking down from Callie's, and I really loved the head of Kiara in the second panel, even though looking at the sketch it doesn't really look like her. It's much more of the hair is much more of a bob, but I think it's really cute, and even if the hair doesn't really match, I think it's just because the rest of the hair did look like it matched, but it was cut off by the size of the panel. It would have extended a bit to the right. The most difficult part of this panel was figuring out how on earth am I going to capture snoring. And I don't know if I necessarily did. I really like how this one turned out, but I think maybe I would have gone more extreme with how Kiara's face looks in the final one, where it looks like she's sort of in pain, like very concentrated. Now she just looks like she's just like slightly mad. So now I'm doing color blocking. I've colored in the sheets behind it with shading. I tried to go very light on the shading, and I use it only for moments where like the emphasis was needed. This is another one where you'll see me flashing to the first comic in order to do color picking. I like how Kiara's hair looks in the beginning. I think I mixed up the colors later. And her shirt was just hearts because I wanted to make sure I redrew it. I looked up like cute chicken themed pajamas, and there was one that said the phrase like "I poop breakfast." but I think that's a bit much. So I wanted to just stick with hearts. I thought it was too wordy. And this is the first appearance that I drew of Callie wearing a KFP shirt. I like the colors where it's like I like the style of t-shirts where it looks like a baseball jersey, where it's got the colored sleeves or short sleeves with the logo in the middle. I think it's nice. I also like how the flames turned out in the last one. And there's me adding zoom effects, wanting to make sure that there's an emphasis for motion. Oh, and now I'm back to doing clothing swap. I guess clothing swap was day 4, and being sleepy was day 3. And in revisiting the sketch, I was originally going to be just these two characters side by side, but I realized maybe I should have a bit of a punchline. I tried to include one with my comics, even though not all of them ended up getting them, just because I already fit too much in the comics, so I wanted the pacing to not feel too crowded with the limited space that I had. So this one is just a one-off line of them standing side by side, and just Callie and just Kiara being like, "Oh, you look great," and Callie being like, "Of course you do. Of course you think that." So there's me writing the speech bubbles, which also conflicts again with the fact that I already lined Kiara, so some of Kiara's, but not much of the line art is for waste. And now I'm back to doing color picking. With this one, as I mentioned, I try to do shading only where it has necessary emphasis. When I did the line art for Callie, I ended up making the lines like way thinner than what they look like on Kiara. Kiara's look is much more whimsical. She's much goofier in this one than the sort of seriousness that I gave to Callie. So I thought that it was appropriate that the detail that I gave to Callie's line art was also applied to the way that I shaded her. And also to sort of bring out the fact that her outfit is tight and to emphasize that fact. I'm gonna put my head right here, right in the cape. There's me lining the little cheebs. It's interesting seeing my process unfold like this. I jumped around a lot. The one thing I never really got a handle on is what to make the background colors. I guess I was sort of thinking about Garfield and how Garfield's comics have these very colorful backgrounds, but I guess each strip usually is its own color, rather than each cell ends up being a different color. When I did in later comics, I would try to use color in a way that would help guide the eye in the direction that I wanted to read. This one's very obvious because it's only 3 panels, so you just go left to right. But besides that, it was more just like, what color do I think contrasts with the characters? And these being very colorful characters, there's no like easy solution. But I guess they're both pink, so anything blue in the background like really helped out. And I guess the purple sort of helps match Callie's theme. I think I picked the purple because I thought that matched Callie's original color scheme, and then the teal matches Kiara's color scheme. And there's me shading the skin in a way to try to emphasize the shape of Callie's form. Yeah. I liked how that comic turned out. It was very popular. It was much more popular than I could have ever anticipated. I am eternally thankful for the support that I got from it. It made numbers that I could not have even imagined. And I think the effort that I put into it was worth it. This comic's theme is Cuddling, and I 1000% struggled with this one. I think I worked on other themes because I was just avoiding the prompts where I was unsure of what to do. The main struggle I had with Cuddling, of course, is how do you draw it. They're very complicated poses, and anything that's not a 3/4 angle or head on is just a struggle. I want to get better at doing poses and stuff like that. So the punchline with this one, it's fairly loose. It's just a fluffy, cute comic where the punchline is them being cute. but Callie is sitting on the bed and she gets tackled by Kiara, and then they cuddle over it because they're just a cute couple of gals. And I did some shortcuts. I will say the pajamas that I gave for Kiara in this comic I think are kind of off. I can't pinpoint why, but I think it's the mix of like the shirt is tight but the pants are like very filled out. I don't know what it is, but like she's got like a bubble going on. I can't figure out like what specifically is wrong with her. I like make it flatter, but maybe I shouldn't. I have no clue how to fix it. I do like the perspective I gave for Callie in the first comic where it's like a slightly top-down perspective, but only slightly. And I wish in the second panel I had made Kiara's tackle a bit more exaggerated. I did find a reference from an anime still of what I wanted to convey, where I wanted it to look like Kiara launched herself at her, and I think this angle just she needs to be like more raised off the ground in the tackle position. Oh, and now I've brought out the colors that I start to typically use to block them out. So I use this orange color to block out Kiara's form, and the pink I used for Callie. And here's another little tip that I did, which is instead of copying the full stills of the character sprites, I drew these tiny little line artless like chibis of them. So then I just move these tinier forms with me around the canvas when I'm going around to color the characters. Then I know like what simplified aspects to focus on. I ended up missing some like obvious parts of their design, but I would remember them. Like Kiara, I missed putting the little blue dots on her torso, and Callie, I missed putting the red diamond on her chest. So yeah, see, like maybe it is the texture. I'm not really sure what I did about Kiara's shorts here. I feel like I did her dirty. I feel like they could have been cuter pajamas. And oh, here's the other grave mistake I did I forgot to write out the text and then line the bubbles. But yeah, overall good panel. I wanted to then add motion blur, of course, wherever I can for comedy. And in the last panel, you'll see I wanted to make it sort of lovey-dovey, so I give it these pink filters to try to achieve that shoujo effect. This comic's theme was being nervous. I had no idea how to answer this prompt. But in one of the clips, there's this really fun moment where when they were first collaborating, like back around maybe like late September, and they were sharing a stream, Kiara just started dancing at the end of it, and she was so wiggly, and then at the very end, she just like does this smug moment where she lowers her head and just like looks like straight at Callie's chest, and she gets all tsundere about it. This one was a weird one because I wanted to capture a lot of the moment where it's just like a lot of Kiara dancing. There's a Calvin and Hobbes comic that's sort of like that, where it's just a bunch of stills of them dancing with a punchline at the end. Although that one didn't use a border, and this one there was sort of a flow to the conversation that I wanted to capture, but I didn't know how to arrange the panels in a way that would have made it obvious or made it interesting, and I could do fun stuff with it. There was one moment where Kiara like starts flying, and so I wanted there to be a panel where Callie looks up and sees her flying, but how do I have a tall panel in a layout like this? So I added the slant to the middle to try to tell the reader, read these three first, then the middle, then these three, then these four on the end. And the slant was supposed to help designate the different sections. So you saw like in the sketch it started as a vertical rectangle that I switched, and I still don't know if it was. I love that I tried to go with a really exaggerated look for Callie when she's looking up, and then I decided this is like too weird. I can't seem to get the pose right, and so I just did a simple pose that's very similar to other poses that I did in this comic, where it's just like head on. I love how the different sketches of Kiara turned out here. I hope I captured her essence during that video. Very expressive, the two of them. I love how indignant she looks. I think that's a good expression for Callie in the second to last panel. And when Kiara laughs, she has down bottom left arrows pointing. I thought I was very clever with that, and I saw that there were a few clips that when they depicted her laughing, they also too had the arrows going in the same direction. so my originality, my ideas are shared with others. And there's me with the orange and the pinks, just like, now I'm sort of establishing it where I use blues for the speech bubbles, orange for Kiara, and pink for Callie, that very, like, neon colors. They are very helpful with helping to fill out the line art. Whew. And I don't know if I do it in the near future. I think now I'm just, like, coloring in the character outlines. But by this point, I'm still not sure if the layout of the comic makes it obvious, like, which direction to read. And so this is where I use the background colors. I tried to make it sort of suggest the path that the guy should take by going in rainbow order. So I believe I start on this left side with, like greens, and then to blues, and then the end panel ends with a pink color. So I tried to follow that, and I'm not sure how successful it was. I feel like maybe I could have pushed this further. Maybe I had to just find a different layout that would help. Maybe if I made the middle panel snake more. And I like the gradient that I added to the middle one for the suggestion of flight. But yeah, there's my that's my comic. Oh, and we're back to this one is Forehead Kiss. And I already had a plan to revisit. I love how the eyes turned out in the sketch. But I revisited the A Way Out playthrough where Callie and Kiara collaborated on it. And I just remember watching it months ago and it breaking my heart. And rewatching again, I forgot just how really touching it is. Oh, it's so sad. I hate seeing Kiara like that. And I wanted to just capture the moment of if they were in the same room together, Callie would, after drawing several comics where Callie is like a big tsundere about it, I wanted to have one where while Kiara is in this incredibly vulnerable state that she just reaches over and smooches her on the forehead. This is one of the ones where like I didn't really have a punchline. I guess the punchline is again them being cute, but if there was a little bit more space, I would have added one panel where maybe Callie just says like feeling better, and maybe Kiara makes some snide joke about like this was her plan all along, or maybe just like thank you. But I couldn't figure out like an easy way to end it, and I thought maybe the forehead kiss was just enough. And here we have me struggling with poses again. You'll see I go through a few faces for Kiara's reaction to being smooched. I kind of like the eyes open one. Maybe I should have stuck with that. I have her closed, still looking like she is struggling with the loss of the characters at the end of the game. And this dialogue between them is sort of abbreviated. The actual back and forth is Kiara says, I should have never played this game, and Callie chimes up, remember, it's the journey! It's the journey! Don't forget the journey! That's what it's all about! And then they reflect back on funny moments, and Kiara says, I liked when I could trust you and you were my friend. And that's when Callie says, oh no, it's not, you can't trust Vincent, but you can trust me because I'm your friend. And there's some good back and forth. I thought it was a really, really sweet moment. It's very clear that the way that, Callie sort of, I mirror Callie with how, you see someone who's upset, and your sort of gut reaction is to try to uplift the situation and say funny comments to try to help them get through it. And I thought it was very sweet. It was, it was fun seeing her try her best to cheer up. The sketch for Callie in the end drawing, it's really goofy here. I don't know if it's obvious to other people, but it's definitely obvious to me that I gave her snake neck. She's got a very long neck. just a big old giraffe. I love their faces in the third panel, with how sad Kiara looks, and then just stunned Callie. There's my little color models coming in again. My practice ended up being that using the color models, I would start with the hair first, with both characters, especially Kiara, because I had to do gradients on the hair, and then I would go in and fill in the skin and then the details of their body when doing the different colors. And then on a separate layer, I would have to do Kiara's earrings or feathers, or I got thrown off for that. I got a comment that they are maybe attached to her. I assumed they were removable. And there's me applying another shoujo effect to the last panel. I wanted to do that whenever they were lovey. And this is me noticing there's something wrong with the neck, and I merged everything on one layer and just started adjusting until it looks right. And there we are back to this sketch from forever ago. Day 8 morning routine, because now it's actually the deadline for completing the day 8. By this point I had a different idea. You can see like in my notes I have the word orderly and messy over here, because I originally thought, oh, I bet Kiara's a morning person and she's got all of these beauty products, and then thought, oh well, she probably has all of these beauty products, but I bet they're scattered everywhere, versus Kiara has like 5 items. I drew a skull. So like one of her breakfast is one of her morning like bathroom items that she would keep. So maybe Kiara has like a tube of toothpaste and a skull, but she keeps them organized. And Kiara has all of these items and she's a morning person, but she keeps them disorderly. There's my color models. This one was fun because it's the first one panel comic I did. I did a couple of these, mainly when this one ends up working as a comic because there's like a clear punchline, and also because your eye does flow from left to right to get the joke. I feel like I love the idea of Callie waking up in the morning and just like absolutely looking disheveled and awful, and like this is the worst hour to be waking up at. But I think I made it way too dark. It looks like she's emerged from a cave and just the sun is behind her. I loved drawing all the items for Kiara's desk. I ended up looking around the items that I had, so like I have that makeup jar next to me, and I also have that vanity mirror, and I captured it. I also wanted to add like a shoujo type filter to Kiara, but I think I ended up making it too scattered. I wish I'd blurred it. I also wanted to include the time just to show that it was the morning or something. So now we are on, I'm drawing the two of them, and this is the comic Making a Move, and I saw in earlier playthroughs of them together that Kiara would put her Minecraft bed next to Callie's bed, which they later kind of reference. I don't know if it's on purpose, but when they were staying together the week during February, Callie made a note about how they have like double beds, and by double beds they meant it's 2 beds pushed together, which is exactly like what they did in Minecraft several months ago. So I thought that was a fun little callback if it was. In this one, it's a very similar punchline to the snoring one, where the idea of Callie just like in a roll of sheets, just like a blanket burrito, but the punchline is sort of the same, where Kiara does something shocking and Callie wakes up and threatens her with the scythe. The scythe, as a disclaimer, is traced from the original artwork. I drew my own idea of what the scythe would be in that snoring comic from earlier, and I decided to add the nickname Kusatori because I hadn't made a reference to it yet. So I sketched it. I traced over the original drawing to get the sketch of the scythe, but then I draw over my sketch for the end result. So I'm sure there's some lineup. I definitely don't encourage tracing. I feel like it's okay for items. I've seen people like trace guns for their own artwork, and I don't think it's like a style thing. I think there's a difficult way to interpret the style of that scythe, and I wanted to capture it more accurately than I had before. But I like how the end drawing is, regardless, I do like this funky texture from one of Procreate's preset brushes. The one odd thing about this is, I saw that they had like yellow and purple beds. I wasn't sure whose is whose, so I made the educated guess. The textures they use from Minecraft are weird. I think the colors in this comic were like ultimately too jarring, but that might also just be in part due to the colors that I was given for like the Minecraft game. But yeah, it's lots of like bright purple, lots of bright purple with no texture. Maybe I would have made the blanket more interesting, but I like this comic. I'm not too thrilled about the expression that Callie makes over here. I wish I did a better job pushing that expression. A brief segue into a separate canvas, where I had the idea of taking a separate drawing of a more fully rendered Callie and Kiara hanging out as a way to advertise the fact, like in a pinned tweet, oh hey, I'm working on this challenge, check it out, this is my prompt list. And then I realized partway through, I can reuse this still of them hanging out together in a comic I'm making. At first it was just going to be the two of them just like side by side, and then I came up with the idea of a Purikura photo being fun. And I suffer again from Callie having a bit of a long neck in this still. It's not as obvious because of the collar try to sort of obstructs like just how tall she is in this one, but I think it ends up working out and them hanging out together. You can see at first, like, I tried to do a little peace sign next to Kiara, but I wasn't able to get it out, and the picture's already, like, the two of them being so tightly close together. But my methodologies for rendering this piece, I do the sketch, then I do the liner, and then I do the flats with my tiny little color models, and then I will make both of their individual layers grayscale, and I'll try to add the value, the hues that are appropriate to try to bring the character to life. And the way that the shading ends up working out, the harshness of the shadows in certain parts of it ends up, I think, having a good effect for as if they were like really bright flash photography. I think the way that I did it was unintentional. It was just the way that I shaded it so darkly. Like, I like how dark the shading around the neck is and the hairline is compared to how bright their faces are. It really just looked like a camera flash went off. And I had fun trying to do the colors here, getting the shadows just right. This is a much more successful piece compared to the one that I did before, whereas I did a picture of Momo Suzunene, and I think this one was much more successful after feeling sort of down about how my rendered artwork looks compared to seeing like other people's works. I thought this one was one of the more successful ones that I did, and I'm glad I got to incorporate it in the comic. Once I finished doing the coloring for the characters, you can see I'm just adding little shines, but then I will be going in, and it wraps up pretty quickly where I add all these little Purikura effects where like there's bows. I added a mustache on Callie. I originally wanted to do cat and dog ears, but the dog ears were being heavily cropped, and I added Ame's little hairpin to Callie in the corner, and those katakana say homodachi because they're a couple of pals. So this theme is date night, and I had this idea of them going to a Purikura booth. So I'd already completed the drawing of them in Purikura. It was originally going to be for its own separate Twitter post, just being like, hey, I'm working on this cool monthly prompts, come check it out. And then I decided, I'll incorporate the finished drawing that I did into its own comic as part of the theme for date night. I like the sketch of Kiara as she appears in this little bubble. She looks like Kirby. Doesn't she look like Kirby right there? But I like how my drawings look when I try to draw cute characters, but then I feel like I lose something in the sketch. I wish I could have a better sketch to line art conversion with that. But yeah, so after I had the drawing of the Purikura finished, it was just a matter of drawing the rest of the comic of them going to a mall and eating fast food. Kiara is eating Whackdonald's, and Callie is eating Taco Bell. I couldn't think of an easy way to parody it. But I know that Callie likes tacos, and I know that Kiara likes fast food, so I wanted to capture that in a comic. And the Purikura booth I'm also really proud of. With that perspective is I looked at official artwork and then sort of freehanded the artwork that appears along the side of it. Although I matched like the color palette of one where it had these lovely pink to yellow gradients, and it just says Purikura on it in a katakana, just because that's the easy way for me to write words in Japanese. Yeah, I think this is a nice, fun comic. I like being able to do artworks that are more rendered in the context of these comics. I'd also been sort of self-conscious about how my rendered artwork looks. I like to go back and forth between doing more finished pieces, but these comics were really fun to do just as a way to like convey a storyline and characters. But being able to do a mesh of them, it's very, it sort of reminds me like SpongeBob would do that a lot, where it would cut between characters who are just talking to all of a sudden like a zoom in painted still of them as part of a punchline. So I like being able to do stuff like that in my own artworks, especially with comics like these. And so right now my head is covering up the tiny character stills that I'm using for the color reference. Oh, except I've moved Callie's to the top left. Injury, I had this prompt after someone commented on my artworks reminding me that the two of them had known each other for thousands of years. I was like, it'd be really fun to do fan art of them, but in a different time period. And I decided to try to emulate the artworks of medieval style artworks that monks would do. Medieval time-like artworks where they look goofy. And there's a lot of fun images of medieval artwork that are out there, just like as part of memes. And this was also a fun excuse to be able to incorporate the rest of the end cast. I wanted Ina to be there, art historian taking them through a museum of historical artwork. And when I drew Ina, I wanted to capture her final boss power stance. And Ina says, here's this painting dated back to medieval times. Historians say the figures were depicted here were cousins. It's sort of a running joke of like older artworks that show two women that are like maybe holding hands. The historical plaque will say that they're cousins. And then there's also like the Sailor Moon reference of how there were the two Sailor Scouts that are referred to as cousins, but in the original Japanese dub they're very clearly like lovers. But it was deemed too risque for the American audiences when dubbing it over. And I also wanted to include time-traveling Ame in the little corner of the art piece. Whether she drew that herself or the artist who depicted this piece captured them is up to interpretation. I had a lot of fun trying to replicate the art style, looking at different art references. They look so goofy. Callie's face looks so goofy. I wish I had done more to mute the colors, but I do like the effects that I applied to it, where the outline, how the outlines look, and the different like brushes I was able to use to achieve this effect. I think it definitely gives off the impression of I was definitely going for emulating medieval artwork, so at least that came across. But yeah, had a lot of fun with it. I would love to do other types of historical artworks depicting Callie and Kiara, and see where it goes from there. And there's Aloof Gura again. Big fan, big fan. So I've written out the remaining prompts for the rest of the couple of days up until Valentine's Day. This comic, the theme is hugging from behind. And I could definitely imagine that if the two of them were hanging out at anime conventions back in 2007, that Kiara would be the type to glomp. If anyone remembers of glomping, truly that was actually like the most embarrassing part. I'm glad that weebdom has sort of become fun again, but I'm glad that we've left glomping in the past for now. We'll see, maybe glomping will make a return. But this comic, the idea was simple of Callie stands and gets glomped, and it's in slow motion. You see sort of still animation frames of them going down. Revisiting this is definitely another, just like that of the dancing comic, it was sort of referencing a Calvin and Hobbes comic in the back of my mind. This is also another Calvin and Hobbes comic, and I remembered it more clearly the more I worked on this. The comic depicts Calvin returning home from school, and he opens the door to his house, and Hobbes pounces on him and launches him like several feet away from the front yard. And it's done in the same way of showing like a frame by frame animation of it unfolding. So I think it's definitely like referencing it in spirit, but it's not a direct copy of it. But it's fun how all of the comics that I read as a kid are sort of permeating. But Calvin and Hobbes definitely left a big impression on me in terms of like thinking about how I'm doing pacing and like maybe what jokes to pull from. But I really love how all of the drawings turned out. I love the expressions of Callie in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th panels. I guess like all but the 2 neutral ones in the first. But the head in the 3rd panel ended up taller than I expected when I was doing the sketch. But I decided to leave it as is because I think it adds a fun little factor of seeing the head stretched out. And I like how the eyes are curved in the 3rd panel, and then she just looks so goofy in the 5th one. Originally this was done without dialogue, you can see. I had no ideas, even in the original sketch of I did for the punchline. And I thought, oh, maybe it would be fun to add some dialogue. And originally she was going to say ack, but then I changed it to gah to be more appropriate. Yeah, a fun, simple comic that I was proud of. So this comic's theme, this is day 13, which is watching a horror movie. Watching old playthroughs of them playing Phasmophobia, I tried to get a certain sense of how the two behaved, and there is one moment just where Callie is calling out to Kiara saying, please don't leave me, so I wanted to capture that in the 3rd panel. I think the idea of someone who is the embodiment of death and the Grim Reaper being afraid of scary movies, I thought that was a fun concept. So I wanted to try to, I don't know if that was conveyed adequately or if other people agree with me, but I think just like, or if people like remember she's the Grim Reaper versus just being like a dorky rapper. But I thought that was really funny, so I wanted to try to capture them in the comic. And I really like how their poses came out. I love you can see like I sort of got into the habit of once I got more comfortable drawing them, that I sort of like had fun playing with how I was drawing their chests, their breasts. No, I'm like being self-conscious about it, but they're much more fluid. I like how Callie's rest in the first panel, and then how they sort of like spring upward when she launches herself in the air. In the last comic, they sort of had that fluidity to them as Callie is falling. And then the third one, when she's in chibi form, they're just like two giant beach balls. She's like this tiny, tiny shrunken cinnamon roll, but with still these two beach. Yeah, I guess I'll just stick with beach balls. Like the perspective of the couch, which was sort of weird to do, because I drew the positions of them like being laid back and super relaxed, and then I had to figure out how am I gonna draw a couch that matches their positions. And I think I was overall successful. I really like how lounged they are. I like that they're holding hands in the first panel. I made sure to do Callie on a separate layer in the middle panel, because after running into issues with prior comics of adding motion blur for comedy, I ran into the issue of I would be merging everything in one layer, and then I would essentially have to be recarving the character back out in order to not blur everything in the scene. So in the back of my mind I knew, oh, I'm going to be applying a blur to Callie in the middle panel where she's springing upward. So I just kept it easy on myself by having it separated out from the start. Everything else in this comic is all, like, I've got the line art layer and the colors layer, but except for the Callie in the middle, which had her own separate line art and color layers that I would later merge in order to apply the blur. I also had a lot of fun with this later panels where when I'd made the smaller scale model of Callie, I remembered that the inside of her dress is this beautiful red color that peeks out, and so I wanted to also play more with finding ways for the red to be exposed, because I thought that was a really neat part of her design that I wanted to emphasize. And yeah, so the punchline with this one is they're watching a movie. Patricia Clark is a reference to one of the characters from their Phasmophobia collabs, and Callie gets scared and jumps in the middle and made sure to make it red and emphasized. And I think it was super effective. Really like it, and I wanted to emphasize that they're holding hands in the first panel. Day 14, Valentine's Day. I knew this was going to be the last comic that I was going to be able to accomplish, so I wanted to go out with a bang. The bang being, I wanted one panel where it's just the two of them kissing. And it was just going to be like a close-up of their heads. I looked at a lot of different screenshots for anime kissing for reference. I like how the sketch turned out, actually, like looking at it now. I adjust the mouths later, and I don't know if it was as successful as the sketches in this moment. And then I realized, oh, their torsos kind of leans together is boring. I'm going to add them hand holding. And then I saw on my feed, I drew this on Valentine's Day, and I saw on my feed there's a really cute pair of chibis of the two of them dressed in different maid outfits, and Kiara had released her single, I think it's like Heart Challenger. She released it that morning, and I thought, oh man, that's so cute. I'm going to reference the maid outfit that she's wearing in there too. So yeah, that's why they're wearing maid outfits. Kiara's maid outfit does not match the one that she shows in the music video exactly. I do capture. I thought that the way that they styled the bow in that video was really cute, but I also like the idea of them having contrasting maid sleeves. So Kiara's got a longer sleeve that extends all the way to her wrist, and Callie just has the short sleeves and then a little frilly cuff with I like the big bow. Yeah, I like this. I like how this pose turned out. I think you'll see the Callie's torso is kind of weird. I noticed that later on, and I do that thing where I merge all of the layers. I try to play around with the end result. And now this is my rendering strategy. I'm still sort of on the fence about how I do finished artworks. But my objective is first I draw the line art, and then I do a layer with grays, and then I go in and try to add shading in places that make sense. So first I did it with this with the airbrush tool, and then I wanted some more exactness to it. So I'm literally just traversing the drawing back and forth, not really taking it section by section. It's just a matter of, oh, I think this section needs shadows, I'm going to add them, and then I see another section that needs shadows and add them. But there's no real methodical way. It's just a matter of I keep doing it until it looks done. And now I've applied multiply and overlay effects onto the shadows themselves to try to give it more life rather than just making it grays that are multiplied on top. At this point I merged everything in the canvas into one layer and then flipped it and realized that, oh, I'm missing some parts of the parts of her hair. And I also noticed there's something wrong with Callie's torso, where I've again run into an issue of snake neck where her head doesn't look like it's really attached to her body. It's still kind of off right now. You'll see I do some more touches where I raise the arm even more. And I also add shading to emphasize that area, and I think it ends up looking really nice. And I adjusted the background. I first tried to go for a space texture, and then I ended up going for this cloud texture. I liked that I added like a white blur behind them. It makes it look like it's really bright, and then I added sparkles. And really proud of how this turned out. Really great progress that I made here. And there you have it, 14 days worth of comics completed. Just out of curiosity, I plotted all of the likes on Twitter that I accrued for these pieces onto a bar chart. But I would not call this a definitive guide for their success, or my success. I'm thankful for the exposure I got, but in general, I think this chart is just neat. I'm still surprised by just how much Day 4's outfit swap comic popped off like it did. I was smiling the entire day. I didn't really expect any of my pieces to do these kinds of numbers. And with that, here are my key takeaways of this challenge, in order from smallest takeaway to largest takeaway. Number 3. Color models are extremely helpful. The designs for Hololive and anime characters in general are complex and have lots of details. When drawing these comics, I had to simplify their designs in order for me to not make the artwork look too busy. I found that redrawing the characters as lineless chibis that I could reference and color pick from to be extremely useful. And now I'm able to draw Kiara and Callie from memory. Well, their simplified forms at least. It's about boiling a character down to their recognizable elements while the audience still understands who I'm referencing. Number 2. Line art is speed. I've never shown my previous artwork, but trust me in that I typically never draw line art when working on my drawings. I usually enjoy starting with something sketchy and painting on top of it until I get something refined. With this challenge, it was all about making sure I reached my deadlines and still having time to spare for me to start early or catch up on daily prompts. I couldn't afford to spend excess time, and using line art proved incredibly helpful in doing so. I want to think I'm somewhat better at it, although I use the dry brush in Procreate that creates shaggy, crayon-like lines that are extremely forgiving to drawing mistakes. With my fuller rendered pieces, you could see I was using line art when blocking them in too, even if in the end I was decreasing their opacity and drawing over them. I suspect I'll be incorporating more of this into my newer styles to reach faster art turnaround times. And finally, number 1, Twitter. Twitter is a weird platform for art and in general. For most of the later pieces, I was posting the artworks as soon as I finished them to make sure I kept to my deadlines, but that came at the cost of not posting them during the most social media optimal times. That's why I don't consider the bar chart to be anything as a measure of definitive success or failure. Additionally, I went into this not only because I'm a fan of Hololive English and wanted to contribute to the community, but I also saw this as a bit of a networking opportunity for myself as an artist, and I came out of it not wanting to be a Twitter artist. If I wanted to work hard to grow on a single platform, I would much prefer growing on YouTube, and as a result, only grow my Twitter so I could use it to promote my YouTube. I still think Twitter is a good place for me to be a part of a community, but I now have a better understanding of where I personally want to focus my energy. And that's that. I hope this was an interesting and maybe motivating video. I had a lot of fun drawing all of this out, meeting KFP employees and deadbeats, and becoming even more obsessed with Hololive. Even when I finished the challenge, I still drew Callie and Kiara vibing to the Shrek opening the next day, and a cursed Gura the day after that. So what I'm saying is, I'm even deeper into this rabbit hole than I thought I was.